So I'm going to share with you today some of my favorite apps. These are not my most favorite apps because, some apps I really like, but I don't use them often. But these are the ones on my home screen. These ones I don't have to swipe to get to, meaning these are the ones that I use most often.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
I want to do something kind of fun today. If you want to go on this ride with me, I'm big on technology. I love technology. I love the efficiencies that it gives us as appraisers. And, I just was recognizing the other day that there are apps that I go to over and over and over again. They're on my home screen. When I say home screen, it's the first screen that comes up on my smartphone. And I want to share them with you today. I want to pause here and remind you we are sponsored by ANOW Software. ANOW, of course, is the way that I manage and that you should manage your appraisal office. If you really want to be on top of it and be a business owner first, and a technician second, ANOW will help you to do that. ANOW.com/coach is the website you need to go to. It's ANOW.com/coach. All right, folks, as I turn on my smartphone here, I've got an iPhone, by the way, and I don't have anything against Android. I actually had an Android for quite a while, and I switched over to Apple, basically because Apple at the time, I was on an iPad, and it just made sense that I could transfer books and other apps back and forth between the two. I don't actually have an iPad. Well, I've got one laying around here somewhere, but I don't use an iPad on a regular basis anymore. But I'm just stuck with Apple. This isn't a podcast on Apple versus Android. I just tell you I'm on Apple because, some of these apps will be available on both platforms and some are only available for Apple. Although I'm looking through and I don't think there's actually any of these that you couldn't get on both. Yeah, I'm pretty sure on both Apple and Android. Okay. So I'm going to share with you today some of my favorite apps. These are not my most favorite apps because, some apps I really like, but I don't use them often. But these are the ones on my home screen. These ones I don't have to swipe to get to, meaning these are the ones that I use most often. And some of them are like settings, right? That's right there on the top left of my screen. I'm not going to go over things like that. That's just obvious, to keep track of my memory and different things on my phone and, turning on and off the battery, that kind of thing. I'm not going to go over those. I'm talking about actual apps that I use for productivity on a regular basis. All right. So let's go through a couple of these. First of all, I've got Google Photos. I've started using Google Photos for my appraisal photos. And just briefly, what I used to do is plug this phone in to iTunes once a month and download all my photos. And then I would basically do three things. I would delete all the trash, which is usually just pictures of, where I parked or something like that, that I wanted to keep in memory for a short term, or receipts or something like that. I'll get rid of those. Then I'll take all the family photos and I'll put them in one file on Dropbox. And then I took all of the appraisal photos and I put them in another file on Dropbox. And then I've got a clean phone again. Well, recently I've been using Google Photos. It's free. It's unlimited. Yes, they reduce the quality of your photos just a little bit, but honestly, I don't think you're not going to notice a difference. I really don't think you will. The nice thing about Google Photos is I can upload the ones for my family directly to a shared folder that I share with my family, and the other ones go into the main folder. So I really, keep in mind, I'm taking about 25 pictures per appraisal. I got a lot of photos of houses and inside of houses on that phone. Google Photos is super, super cool. Okay, I've got the calculator on there, obviously. I've got Google Calendar on there. I use Google Calendar on a regular basis. I've got Safari, of course, going to the internet. Another one I've got is Expensify. Expensify is a brand new app as of a couple of years ago. It is free, okay, and it is the way that I keep track of my tax receipts. So anything that I have for business receipts that I feel like I need to keep in case I get audited, I keep on Expensify. It also keeps track of your mileage as well, but I use a different app for that, which I'll get to in just a second. But Expensify keeps me paperless. So I can go out to a dinner with a client, and if I pay for dinner, I get the receipt. I take a snapshot of that receipt. I can put it in whatever account I need to and whatever category I need to. My bookkeeper has my password and my username on Expensify. No, there's no risk in doing that. It doesn't connect to any of my bank stuff, right? It's just records. And she can keep track of what I'm doing and make sure that it gets put in QuickBooks. In fact, I think there's actually a link directly. You can download the stuff directly into QuickBooks. Expensify, I think it's available for both Android and Apple. That's one of the ones that I'm not positive on, but I'm pretty sure. All right, so Google Maps, of course, is on there. Of course, I've got the All Mode app. I use that on a regular basis. The other one that Ernie Durbin actually introduced me to this years ago. We were at a conference together one day, and he said, "Hey, Dustin, are you using Evernote?" And I'm like, "Ever who?" And he says, "Come here." And we sat down at a table, and he spent, 45 minutes showing me Evernote, and never looked back. There's a little bit of a learning curve. What is it? It's the ability to be able to keep track of everything. Okay, it's the ability to be able to put notes. I've got one Evernote in there that is for staff meetings. So as I'm driving down the road and I think, I need to talk about that in the next staff meeting, I'll put it in that note. I've got a travel folder that I share with my assistant. So any notes, she puts those all in there. Tickets, airplane tickets, hotels, rental cars, all of that stuff is all in my travel folder that I share. I've got personal folders in there for things that my wife and I share, a shopping list to Lowe's. Every time I go to Lowe's, I don't have to remember now what is it that I wanted to get. I just pull up my Evernote, and I've been making notes over the last month of things that I need to pick up next time I go to Lowe's or Home Depot or what have you. Okay. Evernote, it is free. I've never paid for Evernote. Yes, you can do a premium version. I've never found a need for it personally. You can clip things off of Chrome, by the way, Google Chrome. That's super cool. So Evernote, check them out. It's Evernote, okay? And that's an app that you can put on your phone and also on your desktop. Speaking of apps that can be on your phone and your desktop, ANow has a way that you can get to it any way you want, okay? So ANow has its own app. I can keep track of everything that's going on an appraisal. Just the other day, I was in an appointment. And somebody asked me I asked them, I said, "Now you got 6.02 acres here, right?" And they said, "No, we've got 10 acres here. There's 6.02, and then there's I think there's actually 10. And I said, "Well, okay, no problem. Hold on a second." And right there on my phone, in my ANow app, I was able to pull up the file with the plat map right there in the house. We've got all of our work files stored in ANow. Folks, it's so easy to use. Why aren't you using it? Check them out. Go to anow.com/coach. One more time, it's anow.com/coach. All right, I told you earlier, we're back, by the way. I told you earlier that you can use your mileage or keep track of your mileage in Expensify. The problem is you have to remember to set your triptometer or check your odometer every time you go out. I just don't. I don't think about that. I usually think about it as I'm driving in my driveway and wondering how long I drove that day, right? But I don't have to wonder with a little app called Mile IQ, MILEIQ, as in mile smartness, right? Just think of it that way, Mile IQ. Yes, it costs a little bit of money. I think it's like $50 a year to use. But folks, here's the thing. Even if I forget to turn it on, it keeps track of my miles. I don't even have to open it up and leave it in the background. Now, I think it works a little bit better if you do it that way. I don't know that for sure. So I try to always keep it going in the background, right? But it keeps track of when I start, when I stop. And all I have to do at the end of the day is swipe either left or right. Okay. Right means that it was a business expense or a business trip. Left means it was personal. Okay. It's as simple as that. And it literally takes me about 10 seconds to go through all of my drives for the day and just, make sure that I put them in the proper category so that I can pay myself. I usually pay myself for mileage about every quarter. And of course, I keep track of all that in case there is an IRS audit. Mile IQ is the app. Okay, my wife and I use a thing called Disney Circle at our house, and so I have that on my home screen. Basically, it's for lack of a better term, it's the ability to pause the internet. Okay. At any time, I can pause my son, I can pause my daughter, I can pause my wife, but I can pause all of the internet and just say, you know what, you've had enough internet for the day. It also allows us to filter to a certain extent and keep my children. I've got young kids still. I've got a 12-year-old at home. Keep them as much as can. I mean, I know nothing's foolproof, right? But it helps to monitor what's going on in our home. Okay. The app is Circle. It's the Disney Circle. It's a piece of hardware, but there's also an app as well. I keep that on my home screen. Okay. I've got Facebook Messenger there because I do contact and stay in touch with my Facebook groups, my All-Star team, my Appraiser Academy, and my Dream Team. They reach out to me on a regular basis, and I keep that on my home screen. Of course, I've got my VoIP app, my Voice over IP app. Folks, if you're not using a Voice over IP, you should be. It's the ability to sound like you are a professional in an office, even when you're out in Timbuktu doing an inspection. Okay. And it's also the ability to get away from your own cell phone number and start using a business line instead. When I call business associates, when I call a realtor, for example, to tell them I'm on my way, I use that VoIP system because it shows up as the office number and not my cell phone numbers. So annoying to get calls and texts, in my opinion, from realtors that don't go through my gatekeeper. So that app allows me to be able to do that. Okay. I've got Messenger on there, Apple Messenger. I've got a little a deal called Google Keep I've been using the last year. Thanks, a big shout out, hat tip to Lee, my assistant, for getting me on there. I don't use it a lot because I use email mostly for my to-do list, but it's for my long-term to-do list. It's also for my list that I'm sharing with Lee and my other assistant. And so things that we want to collaborate on together. Google Keep, it's free. It's a great little app. And just a couple others real quick here that I'll share with you. MyFitnessPal. I use MyFitnessPal to keep track of my workouts, to keep, like anybody sees me like, yeah, right, Dustin, your workouts, huh? Boy, that must be hard to keep track of all those workouts you're doing. I did work out today, but mostly keep track of my carbs, my calories, so that I can stay under a certain amount every day. I've tried a lot of different things to keep my weight under control, and MyFitnessPal seems to be the best for me simply because it all boils down to calories, right? Calories in and calories burned. If you intake less than you burn, you're going to lose weight. I mean, there's a lot to that. I know I'm oversimplifying, and those fitness buffs out there saying, Dustin, don't say that. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to, though. It's the number of calories you bring in versus the number that you take out. And I just know that if I stay under a certain amount every day, I lose weight. And if I don't, I gain weight. And there's no such thing as plateauing when it comes to me. So MyFitnessPal, again, free. I have an accountability partner that's hooked up on that as well, and she can check that on a regular basis and make sure that I'm staying on track. Okay. And then the only other things, I've got my email on there that I, by the way, do not check every second like some people do. I've got Facebook on there. Again, don't check that like some people do. I probably check it too much. But no, not probably. I check it too much, but I actually keep it under control for the most part. I used to be a lot worse than I am now. I do not get the notifications on Facebook to pop up on my phone. I did get rid of that years ago. Okay. If I want to check Facebook, I have to open the app to see it. It's not going to tell me that something's waiting for me. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to end with this one. You've heard me talk about it before. It is the WhatsApp app. Okay. And we use that for communication within our office because you can text, you can send video, you can send photos, and most importantly, you can send audio. Okay. So I can jump on there and I can say, hey, Lee, just inspect this property. When you're pulling comps on it, keep in mind that this has been completely remodeled. It may be a 1979 house, but it is essentially brand new. And he's got that note that he can take notes on his side. We can go back and forth. WhatsApp is the app, and it is great. By the way, when we traveled in Europe, WhatsApp allowed us to be able to call back to the States and talk to my daughter without cost. As long as I was on Wi-Fi, it went through the internet and worked great. Okay, that's what a lot of the kids use it for is long distance calls without cost. But we use it in our office communication. It's a great app. You ought to check it out. By the way, if you want any tips on apps and things that I'm using on a regular basis, I share those monthly with my All-Star team through the newsletter. And there's also an audio version of the newsletter every single month. It's called The Coach's Playbook. and you can get it as part of my all-star team. Check it out. Go to theappraisercoach.com/memberships, theappraisercoach.com/membership.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.